On Christmas Eve of 1945, a family of 11 went to sleep in a wooden house in rural West Virginia. By dawn, that house was a pile of ash, burned to the ground in under an hour. 2 parents and 4 children escaped. 5 of their children were never seen again. No bones, no teeth, no remains of any kind were ever found. For the next 4 decades, their parents refused to believe those 5 children had died in that fire at all. The Sodder family lived just outside Fayetteville, West Virginia. George Sodder, an Italian immigrant who ran a trucking and coal business, and his wife Jenny had 9 living children in 1945. George was outspoken in his criticism of Mussolini and fascist Italy, a stance that had, more than once, put him at odds with other Italian immigrants nearby. On the night of December 24th, the family celebrated together. Jenny and the 4 youngest children went to bed. Around midnight, the phone rang. Jenny answered to an unfamiliar woman's voice asking for a name she didn't recognize. Laughter and glasses clinking behind it. She said it was a wrong number and hung up. She noticed the downstairs lights had been left on and the curtains open, unusual for the house, but thought little of it and went back to sleep. After 1 a.m., she woke to a noise striking the roof. Later, she woke again to the smell of smoke. A fire had started in George's downstairs office and was already tearing through the house. George, Jenny, and 4 of the older children escaped from the ground floor. The 5 youngest, asleep upstairs, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Irene, and Betty, could not be reached. The stairway was already in flames. George ran for the ladder. All was kept against the house. It was gone. He tried backing his coal trucks up to the windows to climb them instead. Both trucks, which had run fine the day before, would not start. He broke a window with his bare hands, cutting his arm badly, but couldn't get through the flames. A neighbor tried calling the fire department. The phone lines were dead, cut, some believed, not simply burned. By the time help arrived from town hours later, the house was gone. Searchers found no bones, no teeth, nothing recoverable. Officials concluded the fire had been hot enough to fully cremate 5 children, ruled it an accidental fire from faulty wiring, and closed the case. Death certificates were issued. George and Jenny never accepted it. They pointed to the ladder, later found in a ravine well away from the house, as though deliberately hidden, to both trucks failing on the one night that mattered, to the cut phone lines, to the strange midnight call from a voice they never identified, and to something else. Weeks before the fire, an insurance salesman had visited, and after George turned him down, reportedly warned that his house would go up in smoke and his children destroyed, a threat the family only understood in hindsight. Months later, George tested the official story himself. He burned a comparable pile of logs for roughly the same duration as the house fire. Bones remained clearly visible in the ashes afterward. To the family, that directly contradicted the idea that an ordinary house fire could leave nothing behind. Fire experts have since noted that under sustained, extreme enough heat, full cremation without conventional bone fragments is possible, though whether a typical house fire could reliably do that remains genuinely disputed. More pieces surfaced over the years, none conclusive. A woman running a roadside stop between the property and town said she saw a car pass that night, carrying several children. One, she believed, matched the missing daughter, Betty. Others recalled a man photographing the Sodder children in the weeks before the fire, for reasons never explained. Convinced their children had been taken rather than killed, George and Jenny hired a private investigator and put up a large billboard on a nearby highway. Photos of the 5 missing children, the reward for information. It stood for decades, into the 1980s, a public statement that the case was, to them, still open. The most striking piece came in 1968, over 20 years later. Jenny received an envelope postmarked from Kentucky containing a photograph of a young man she and others believed strongly resembled her son Louis, then around 30. On the back, a cryptic handwritten note referenced his brothers by nicknames only the family would know. No return address, no further contact ever came. A private investigator traced the lead nowhere, and neither the photographed man nor the sender was ever identified. George died in 1969, still believing his children were alive. Jenny kept searching and kept the billboard standing until her death in 1989. West Virginia has never reopened the case. The official record still calls it an accident. Researchers remain divided. Some believe the evidence points to survival, possibly tied to organized crime or the political tension around George's anti-fascist views, though never proven. Others argue that a family's grief, however understandable, doesn't override the physical unlikelihood of 5 children simply vanishing without a trace, and that the official fire explanation, however unsatisfying, may still be correct. What isn't disputed is the record from that night, a missing ladder found far from where it belonged, 2 trucks that wouldn't start, cut phone lines, a stranger's call at midnight, and in the ashes of a house that burned in under an hour, not one trace of 5 children who had been asleep inside it. More than 75 years later, the Sodder case remains officially closed and unofficially very much alive, kept that way by a family who spent the rest of their lives refusing a story that never fully added up, and by a mystery that, even now, has never been resolved either way.